Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. So I am so grateful to still be receiving Patreon friends, comments, and also favorite films lists. So I have a Patreon page, and I invite all my Patreon friends to, if you're interested, to submit to me your favorite films list, and I'll be very happy to respond as best I can. You know, I don't have the greatest responses in the world, and of course I haven't seen all of these films, all of these great films that you are mentioning to me, but it's wonderful to be able to touch upon them and also to learn from you and to hear from you, because I really do believe this. I believe that in one very meaningful way to get to know someone is by the films that they like. And I don't mean that in any type of oh, you know, you like this type of film or you like that type of film. Oh, you know, I don't mean it in that kind of way. I mean in a real genuine way, just to get to know someone by virtue of what it is they really regard as being their favorites. I think it's a wonderful learning experience for me, and it's just a great way to get to know you from my point of view. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And thanks very much for your continued support of me and the channel and your very kind attention. I really appreciate it. So this is an invitation to anyone who is a Patreon member. You can be a paid member or you can be a free member. Anyone who's the only thing is you have to submit it to me as a Patreon friend through the Patreon page. So as long as you do that and you're interested, I'm still very happy to receive favorite films lists from people, and I am still receiving them. So from new members. So thank you so much. One of the latest ones I received was from James WALSTROM. So hello, James. Thank you very much for reaching out to me with the direct message on Patreon, and also thank you very much for sharing with me your list. I looked at it, and you have 4 here. They are very exciting, very intriguing choices for me. Your choices are very intriguing and very exciting to me, and they indicate a very fascinating taste in cinema. Really great. So you mentioned Lady in the Water, Megalopolis, Terrifier 2, and Legally Blonde. These 4. I love these choices. I love these choices for a number of reasons. I'll try to get into those one at a time. So let me start. Okay, Lady in the Water. So M. Night Shyamalan. So I wouldn't call myself the biggest expert when it comes to the cinema of M. Night Shyamalan, but and I don't know if Lady in the Water is maybe my absolute favorite of his works, but it is a work that I remember watching and really getting into. And I also remember when I saw it, I knew ahead of time before I saw it that maybe it didn't have the most, say, positive critical reaction, and I sort of caught wind of that. But when I finished watching, I wasn't necessarily on that negative critical train. On the contrary, I thought it was quite engaging. But I must admit, I've seen it just a couple of times. I haven't seen it that say as deeply as perhaps I really should. So seeing here, but I do remember watching it with kind of a great intense interest and fondness. So. Further intrigued by what M. Night Shyamalan has to offer, and his voice is, I think, very important, really important in a kind of his voice. I would say is in this really great way. I mean, he takes so many risks, and his films hinge on a type of wonderful way in which a wonderful sense of marketing and promotion that never betrays or at least I don't think it generally speaking never betrays the sense of a type of dramatic propulsion that I think is at the heart of his work. Definitely his quote unquote major work, and I think his body of work maybe later, when as the years pass, will be subject to great sort of critical appraisal, reappraisal, I'm sure. A very fascinating film from a very fascinating filmmaker. So that's a great choice. Terrifier 2. Terrifier 2. So the Terrifier 2 was a film, or Terrifier and Terrifier 2 were films that I was introduced to fairly recently, thanks to a very dear friend of mine named Tanner. And I knew of them, but I didn't experience them until watching them on disc for the first time, and then also on streaming. And Terrifier 2, this kind of was, how when you have certain scenes that happen, especially in the second one, the first one too, but you have certain scenes that happen, your just eyes kind of bulge out of your head, as kind of, am I really seeing what it is I think I'm seeing? I mean, was that kind of like gross out intensity? I wasn't quite prepared for that, and I was kind of relishing it on the one hand. I was totally grossed out on the other. And I love that type of reaction when I see a film like this, and it had that great. It had the production values that shown on screen, but it had that wonderful, very earnest, exploitation grindhouse vibe, which, as you know, is a maybe genre, subgenre, or subgenre of cinema. So, I think it's done very, very memorably, very effectively. But I'm kind of a recent. I'm a recent member in sort of the world of Terrifier. So, but Terrifier 2, that is a great, really, really squeamishly great choice, I would say. Well done. Legally Blonde. Legally Blonde is also a film that I saw this, not in the theater, but maybe freshly around the time of its release, and it was I think it was a kind of it was a sort of popular hit. It was a sort of this. I would say it was a it was a warmly received upon its release with Reese Witherspoon, and it has this. It has this wonderful sort of touch and charm to it. I mean, and I looked at it too. My experience is not the exact same as the characters in the film Legally Blonde, but I also look at it from the viewpoint: does this really happen in the course of sort of the field of law and law school and law studies, etc.? Some of it is a bit. It does. It does stretch a bit, or quite a lot, actually. So I don't know if this would actually happen in the context of, Harvard Law School, but it certainly is a very it's a very entertaining and quite compelling sort of I would say a feel good comedy drama in many ways, and certain aspects. I mean, I don't want to totally put clouds on all of sort of the legalese of the film, but yeah, there's some aspects I would say, not being the legal expert here, but some aspects from my point of view, some might not necessarily fly as well as others, but there are other points that I think fly maybe quite well in the context of maybe legal discussion. So. But Legally Blonde, that's a really fun choice. I like that very much. And then you have fourth here. So the fourth film is Megalopolis, the Francis Ford Coppola film Megalopolis. This is really great. This is, I think, you're giving me the opportunity, I think, to speak about Megalopolis for the first time. Maybe I've spoken about it, maybe off the cuff, or maybe in live streams, etc. I don't do video reviews or anything like that on my channel, so I haven't spoken about it in any kind of in-depth review or anything. I leave that to the YouTubers and video reviewers who are much more well equipped and better adept at this than I. But yes, Megalopolis, I think it's a film that I think I still don't have my head wrapped around completely. I really like that feeling. I like feeling kind of lost sometimes when I watch a film. And I saw it in the theater, And it was a very wild experience. There's hardly anyone in the theater where I was, and it was a big theater. It was an AMC theater, so it was one of these like multiplex places. But there was hardly anyone in the theater. There were just a few others, but and I was so excited to see it. I already knew it had this very almost notorious reputation, both, let's say, on screen and also maybe behind the camera. And there was a lot of stuff, a lot of things that were flying about in the news. But it was, in any event, it was a film that I knew I had to go see, and I didn't know how long it would be in the theaters. So I tried to go as quickly as I could, and I went. I went by myself, and as I was watching it, I really was. My head, and my brain and my heart were like ping pong balls, maybe just going back and forth, vacillating between. Do I really? I'm enjoying this on the one hand, and I'm completely lost on the other. And so I left the theater, and I was just, my brain was kind of mush, not quite knowing what to make of it, not even knowing if, on a kind of fundamental level, if I really could say I engaged with it, if I liked it or not. And so I was just left thinking, yeah, oh, wow, almost wordless, speechless. And there are some parts of it, and I keep constantly thinking back on that. I think for me, I look at it. Okay, one can look at it as being a complete and total mess. Another way to look at it is being just all these ideas that have been pent up inside, say, the heart and the brain of Francis Ford Coppola over the years that he wanted to do, because as we know, he's always wanted to make some version of what ended up becoming Megalopolis. He's always wanted to do that. Now, stuffing all these ideas here, whether they connect together in any kind of coherent or coherently effective or effectively coherent way, that's up to you as the viewer to decide. But they are certainly there. And what I got a lot was I was reminded of this feels like an epic silent film that we might have seen from, say, Fritz Lang. It feels very much like something of Metropolis, Fritz Lang. Or I also got vibes of maybe not necessarily Metropolis. I also got vibes of a film like Sunrise, with this sort of story on a city landscape and people within the drama that's unfolding, and almost magical things that can happen seemingly out of nowhere. And that magic is very much on purpose shown to be something like a trick inside the camera, or maybe a maybe photo-visual effect or something of the sort. In Megalopolis, there is so much of that. I mean, all the effects of, say, freezing time and standing still here, and then a kind of grandiose gestures of light and shadow. These are all very much calling attention to themselves. So they feel like they're meant to either evoke or suggest kind of these in-camera tricks, which are, again, very evocative of the great silent epics, or the great, say, special effects epics of the silent film era. So in many ways, Coppola, whose voice can be said to be maybe one of those voices that is maybe hearkening back to a kind of a golden age of cinema, or even prior to that, sort of the dawn of cinema, because of how many people view his positioning in cinema, having created so many great masterpieces over the ages, and being a great champion of cinema in many respects. So in many ways, this feels like Coppola's version of Metropolis or Sunrise. And in that way, it becomes a very fun film to watch from a cinema lover's perspective. So that's one thing. So it operates as a really great silent film made in the 2020s. So make of that what you will. And I think also that the type of free-spirited nature of it is what um, uh, yeah, this free-spirited nature of it, I think, is one of its great appeals, and it makes me wish that it were longer. In fact, I wish that the film were longer than its eventual running time. I felt like it ended kind of quickly, and perhaps that was one of its weaknesses for me, that it wasn't long enough. Now, maybe for others that maybe the opposite true. They maybe for others they couldn't wait for it to end, but I think that one of its strengths is becoming acclimated to this world. It does take quite a bit of getting used to get used to this world. I mean, it's a very quick, or it's very rough rough point of entry when you start watching Megalopolis. It's hard to get your bearings, to be perfectly honest. But once you do, I think you can fall into the rhythms and the trances of it. And that also holds true for some of the performance choices. I mean, once you get into the rhythms, the performances, I think, make sense within those rhythms. Which is why I think the more time spent in that world, the more chance you have to get acclimated to the world, and the more chance you have to get acclimated to, say, the performance rhythms. I mean, Adam Driver makes some very weird choices. He does. Very, very weird choices. But that's part of the rhythm of the piece. You know, it's almost this kind of erratic multitasker, just doing one thing, but doing something that is completely inappropriate in a given context, but it's appropriate in another context. That's kind of like multitasking. He's doing one thing in one setting, but he's just mixed up the settings, which is great. It just shows maybe the nature of his maybe multitasking, three-dimensional chess type of mind as his character. There's also I think there's some very memorable turns from other actors there. I think some kind of, they appear and they are handled in this almost witty, kind of laugh out loud, funny way. And that's another thing too about Megalopolis. It's a great comedy. It is a wonderful comedy, and it, I think, invites you to laugh out loud, maybe with it, maybe at it. It's up to you, of course, your prerogative. But it's this fun, inviting, and quite interactive thing. Now, the showing that I went to in the AMC unfortunately didn't have any special interactive part to it, which was part of some of the road shows performances of Megalopolis. So I didn't get to experience the full interactive quality of Megalopolis in that way, unfortunately. But there is, I think, there's this warm, inviting, interactive quality to it. That is again very much it is very much off the beaten path from what is quote unquote expected, or what has come to be expected in films that appear in the sort of AMC multiplexes today. Now, not to knock any of those films, not at all, but it is certainly different. So so again, it might take a while for the film to find its audience. If it ever ends up finding its audience, I don't think it's not a film. It's not a film where, oh, it's from the director of The Godfather. I don't think that kind of hook is enough. Obviously, it's not enough. It's its own distinct, different thing, unique thing, and you take it for what it is, and you can kind of like wrap your head around it, or like me, you're still trying to wrap your head around it, and you make of it what you will. Walk away maybe not liking it, maybe just thinking it's a complete waste of time, or walking away with it from it thinking it might be something worth revisiting. I would also say that for me, it's a film that I need to watch over and over and over again, and I'm willing to do that. And as I say, there's some and there's some wild scenes. There's some really funny, loud, laugh out loud scenes as well. There's a scene involving. It involves the character played by Jon Voight. There's a scene with him. It's sort of a kind of a climactic scene, and he's in bed. It's just one of the funniest things I've seen. And I still can't believe, wow, he would. Coppola and Jon Voight and like Aubrey Plaza, in that scene, they would make this choice. They're going to do that. That's a really like a unique choice. And I remember in the theater, I was just laughing out loud. That was one of the funniest moments. And it just turned into this weird thing where I was just feeling one thing one moment, just going completely in extreme direction the next split second of that scene. So as I say, it just takes me so many places, and I don't know if I feel like, uh, it's maybe being thrown around like a rag in a. I feel like a rag in a maybe in a launder machine, just trying to get my bearings and just not being able to until the cycle is over. But and then just feeling dizzy afterwards and not knowing where I am. So that's how I feel with my time with Megalopolis. In that way, James, I love your mentioning here of Megalopolis because I think it reminds me. Well, one, I really want to see it again, and so I know it's maybe released in physical media in some territories. I don't know if it's getting. I don't think it's gotten a physical media release yet in North America, right, as of the time of the making of this video. So I hope it does. Maybe get this deluxe treatment, maybe the Coppola extended cut treatment. I'm not sure, but if and when that happens, no matter what the version is, I'll try to get it and rewatch it. The more I think about it, the more I'm kind of becoming more blown away by it. And sometimes films do that. I had a similar reaction to a film that I saw from another filmmaker I admire named David Cronenberg called The Shrouds. I saw it, but then as I walked away from it, I began to think about it more and more and more. The same reaction I had with Megalopolis. I saw it, but then I just walked away with it, feeling dizzy and mortified in some respects, but then just being more and more perplexed and confused, and thus more intrigued by it the more and more and more I thought about it. So, and I think that's part of its power. And Coppola, I know he right, a lot of his critical success, immediate critical success, is very much part of the Coppola legacy. How Apocalypse Now was the initial reaction to it versus how people have reacted to it over time, and all the awards and critical attention it received in the immediate vicinity of its release. Same thing with films like The Conversation, The Godfather Part 2, etc. So I that's very important, right, on the one hand. But also there is this longevity that I would say Coppola's films tend to have for me. Maybe some films not so much by his than others. There's some films that have been directed by him that I think, for me anyway, haven't aged as well. But there are other films that have aged so sublimely that even if they had maybe heated critical reactions upon the time of their release, they've really grown in stature. Just grown and grown and grown. Thus, that becomes the end result, and that is the ultimate prize, I think, that I'd like to hope that Coppola is yearning for. And I'm thinking about films like, I'm thinking about films like One from the Heart, or other works from the '80s. I'm really quite. I'm quite taken with it. Now, another thing too, I always have to keep in mind. I'm always trying to keep in mind. I don't want my admiration for the other films by Coppola to in any way cloud my reaction towards Megalopolis. I don't want to think, I love The Godfather, so I have to force myself to love Megalopolis. I don't want to do that. So, and I'm trying to avoid that as best as I can in my head. So as I endeavor to do that, that's where I am with Megalopolis, right? I'm as I try to distinguish my admiration for what he did with The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2 and The Godfather Part 3, etc. Regardless of how much I feel about that, I'm still trying to look at Megalopolis as being its own thing and reacting to it in that way, in its own thing. So, even as I'm trying to react to it in its own way, as its own thing, that's the conclusion I come to as I've expressed it now. So, James, I love that you mentioned this here as being part of your favorite films list. It's given me the opportunity to kind of vent and to kind of express how it is I feel. So sorry for using your favorite films list as a means for me to talk about it myself. So I apologize to you in that respect, but also I extend you my deepest gratitude for giving me that opportunity. And also my deepest admiration to you for having it as part of your list. James. It's really wonderful. So thank you very much, James. I really appreciate this. And thank you very much for your warm comments and your kind support. And also your kind support of me here on YouTube and also Patreon. And also just your great, great taste in cinema. Very inspirational, James. Very much so. So thank you so much indeed. And I hope to see you and talk to you very soon. So to James and to the rest of my friends out there, please continue to be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great, great, great movies. So to James, my dear friend, thank you and cheers.